Voice, where our mission here is to seek truth and spread love. To seek that truth even when it's difficult, even when it's challenging. And it's difficult to truly seek truth, because the only way to truly seek truth is to be able to suspend our own prejudices, our prejudgments of things, to suspend our own ideas, our past, our spin on things, and have what's often called beginner's eyes, to see things for how they really are. Otherwise, we will be projecting our opinions, which are not necessarily the truth, upon reality and affect the way that we see that reality. So if we want to truly seek truth, we have to let go of our own prejudices, our own prejudgments, our own paradigms to a degree, and begin to just look around the world and see things for how they really are. It's not easy to do, which is why I am not a Democrat or a Republican. I don't want any label defining me, because it's a slippery slope. Now, there's nothing wrong with identifying ourselves with a certain group of people and seeing that we have some similarities, but it is a slippery slope, because you can fall into the death traps of what's often called groupthink. Not a good thing. When we fall into groupthink, we simply begin to believe everything that group says must be true. We begin to suspend our own critical thinking. And our identity, our very sense of self-worth, begins to become attached to this group. And so any thinking outside of that group becomes dangerous. Dangerous to our own ego, to our own identity. So we must let go of all these past ideas and opinions and beliefs and prejudices if we want to truly begin to see reality, see it for what it is. So that's how I try to approach the world. And with politics, I try to do that as much as I can, very possibly can. So I don't want any group telling me what to think. So here's the thing, what I did for this tipping point. I wanted to understand the new tax plan, which is almost an exercise in insanity if you watch the news. How can two different groups have such a different story around the very same thing? And if you watch some of the people, it's like the Democrats are like, it's the end of the world! It's Armageddon! It's Armageddon! We're all gonna die! Armageddon, I tell you! We're taking money from Tiny Tim and we're giving it to Ebenezer Scrooge! It's a tax cut for the rich! 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 We're all gonna get Armageddon! And I'm not kidding. I'm not making up those quotes. That's actually what I've watched. Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats. This is the end of the world. It's the worst thing ever. Me. And if you watch mainstream media, like CNN and MSNBC and these things, and read the papers and the late night talk show hosts, they all pretty much lean to the left. This is what you're going to get. So the only thing that's conservative really on TV, news-wise, is Fox News. So I watch all of them. So I went to Fox News to see what they had to say about the tax plan, because I wanted to get to the truth. And I was shocked, because I thought what I was going to get was, this is the greatest thing since oxygen, and we have created it. Oxygen. We have saved humanity with the new tax plan. It's the greatest thing in the minute. But that's not what I saw on Fox News. I was actually surprised to hear a lot of critical thinking around it. I watched a clip with Tucker Carlson, and he was interviewing a guy, and the guy was saying, I think it's going to be a good thing. Now, this is a few months ago. Interviewing a guy, and he said, I think it's going to be a good thing. And Tucker was like, I don't know. I hope you're right, he said. I hope you're right. I don't understand it. I'm not sure what's going on yet.
All boats, everybody's wages are going to rise, and we're going to hear these conversations from time to time.
I just look at the stock market at all-time highs, and yet the middle of the country's dying, and so I'm just not convinced there's a direct... I want to believe...
When we get corporations to stay right here in the United States of America and stay because they want to be here, as opposed to being forced offshore, we win. Every American wins.
I hope that works.
Now, I don't know what he thinks about the tax plan now, because I finally just did a whole lot of digging myself to try to get to the truth. What is the truth? And so, I have my didgeridoo. It's going to be a scale. We're going to use it as a scale. And I have these numbers that I have literally printed up on pieces of paper. And we're going to use these numbers on our scale to try to get down to the truth. And we're going to use the Force. Have you seen the new Star Wars? Luke asks Rey, what is the Force? And Rey says, it's something a Jedi uses to read minds and lift rocks. So we're going to use the Force to help us understand the new tax plan here with these numbers that I have cut out and my didgeridoo as a kind of scale. There's 7 tax brackets. There were 7 tax brackets. And if you were in the lower class, you paid 10%. If you were in the lower middle class, you paid 15%. If you were approaching the middle class, you paid 25%. If you were approaching the middle, moving toward the upper middle class, you paid 28%. If you were in the upper middle class, you paid 33%. If you were in the upper middle class, pushing toward just the upper class, you paid 35%, and the wealthiest, the highest tax bracket of all for the wealthiest among us, it was 39.6%. This is where things were in the old tax plan. Now, the new tax plan, here's how things are. Under the new tax plan, here's how they are. The lowest of the lower class, we're going to use my mallet drum here to help us out with the Force. The lower class was paying 10%. They're still paying 10%. No change. The lowest amount anybody pays, 10%. Now, under the new tax plan, if you're the lower middle class, you now pay 12%. Using the Force, using the mallet, we can see very clearly that 12% is less than 15%, and that's the lower middle class. 12%, 3%, that's a lot actually. 12%, 15% is lower. Now, as we move on to the getting toward just the middle class, it was 25%, now 22%. It's lower, 25, 22%. As we get toward the moving in the direction of the upper middle class, it was 28%, now 24%. It was 28. Using the Force, we can see it's 24%. Now as we go to the upper middle class, it was 33%, now it's 32%. 32%. That's lower. Now here, where we get to the upper middle class, or pushing toward just the upper class here, we're getting up to pretty wealthy, the very wealthy here, pretty wealthy people. I thought for sure we would see some huge tax cut because of everything I've been hearing.
We're taking money from Tiny Tim and we're giving it to Ebenezer Scrooge. It's a tax cut for the rich. It's a tax cut.
She actually said that.
The Republican tax plan will be full of tricks for the middle class and full of treats for the wealthiest Americans.
It's going to be a middle-class tax increase.
A devastating and, in my view, immoral budget to fast-track their immoral tax plan to hand trillions to the wealthy while raising taxes on the middle class. Taxes will be raised on middle-class families across America. And like Tiny Tim, Simon and his family now find their future in danger because of the greed of those with power, the cruelty that is in the heart of the tax scam.
Democrats talk about this bill often in very apocalyptic terms, but isn't really what's going on is that Many people are getting a very modest tax cut, and some people are getting a tax increase, while a lot of this is also going to business, but it's not the end of the world.
No, it is the end of the world. This is Armageddon, because it is in their DNA to give tax cuts to the rich.
Okay. So I thought there I'd see this huge tax cut. Guess what? It's the same. No tax cut whatsoever. The same. They were paying, as before, 35%. They're still paying 35%. Now, a lot of people would say that's not fair. They should get a tax cut as well. They're not. I'm not here to say that this tax plan is even a good thing. I'm not saying that. I'm just pointing out that it's not. I'm trying to make a point here that of what it just is, and then we can all decide if it's a good thing or not. All right. Now we get to the wealthiest of the wealthy, the highest. It was 39.6%, and now 37%. It's a deduction of 2.6%. So the very, very wealthiest do get a tax cut. But really, look at this, in this whole thing altogether. Is this tax cut for the rich? It's for the rich! You're taking for them! It doesn't look like it to me, but there's more. Because you gotta dig in, you gotta roll up your sleeves. Guess what? It may look like the wealthiest are getting a 2.6% cut. You have to go deeper, because some other things have changed. They're losing their mortgage deduction. Now, there used to be deduction mortgage interest. They used to make a deduction on a $1 million home. $1 million of that was a deductible of their interest. That's changed from $1 million to $750,000. Used to be $1 million. They used to be able to deduct. Now it's down to $750,000. That alone can make up for the 2.6%. But there's more. The standard household deduction for all the middle class used to be $12,000. Okay? The standard household deduction. That's doubled for the middle class. It's gone from $12,000 to $24,000. The standard household deduction is doubled for the middle class. For the highest class, no change. No change. The child tax credit for the middle class used to be $1,000 per child. It's doubled. It's doubled. Now it's $2,000 per child. For the upper class, no change. So there's many, many things here that negate the 2.6%. They got the 2.6%, they were given that, but then other things were taken away. In the end, it is not a tax cut for the highest, the richest among us. And a lot of people would argue that's not fair, and it would be better for our economy if those were, I'm not here to say it, all of us have to decide. But in the end, if you ask me, it's not a tax cut for the rich. That's not what it is. And if anybody tells you that it is, use the force and club them over the head. I don't think so. This is the best I could come up with. But I want to hear from you. And also, one more thing I want to bring up. I started to hear a whole lot, like on Facebook and different places, certain people were saying, don't believe it, because it's temporary. Except for corporations, except for business, it's temporary, because businesses are evil. We don't want the businesses to have a tax cut. But I'm always just dismayed by that. Why is businesses always evil? Most businesses are small businesses, and not all big businesses are evil. But anyway, I saw a lot of people saying things like, don't believe it because it's temporary. It's all a ruse. It's all fake because it's only going to last 10 years. Well, and those were Democrats saying that. Well, guess what? The only reason it's temporary is because the Democrats are filibustering. They don't want to make it permanent. I find it so incredibly ironic and the hypocrisy of it all. Because the Republicans want to make this permanent. The Democrats do not, but the Democrats it's good or bad. I'm just trying to point out what the truth is. It looks like a pretty good thing to me, but I want to hear from you. Let's get to the bottom of this. Have I missed anything here? Is there anything, did I misrepresent something? I think it's true. There's a lot of proof now in the economy and in the world that this is a good thing. But I'm still open-minded about it. So let's get to the bottom of it. And again, let's use the force. See you next time.
If you're new to YouTube, then let me explain. You gotta give a thumbs up, that's how we play the game. You see, the more thumbs up a video gets, the more the powers that be distribute the video for others around the world to see. Next to subscribe button, there's a little bell. You gotta click on this little guy as well. Then and only then will YouTube inform and let you know that Tipping Point Productions has got a new video. So give the thumbs up, click the bell, and share the love. So together we can take the truth and rise above. Hey, hey, share the love. Yeah, yeah, yeah.